Everyone remembers Season 6 of Smallville for the big moments. Green Arrow's arrival, the Phantom Zone, the birth of the Justice League. But I don't think that's what this season is really about. Because underneath all of those superhero moments is a much quieter story. A story about Clark Kent slowly losing every certainty he had ever relied on. By the end of the season, Clark isn't questioning villains. He's questioning himself, his purpose, relationships, his future, and even the person he's becoming. Looking back, I don't think Season 6 was about Clark learning how to become Superman. I think it was about taking away everything that prevented him from becoming one. Season 6 doesn't begin with Clark facing a new enemy. It begins with something much worse: silence. Jonathan Kent is gone. For years, Jonathan had been more than Clark's father. He was the voice that grounded him whenever life became overwhelming. Whenever Clark questioned himself, Jonathan had an answer. Whenever Clark felt lost, Jonathan reminded him who he was. Now, that voice is gone. And with it comes something Clark has never truly experienced before: uncertainty. For the first time, every difficult decision belongs to him alone. Then, as if that loss weren't enough, Martha leaves for Washington. While she remains an important part of Clark's life, her absence changes the atmosphere of the Kent farm. The place that had always felt like home suddenly feels much quieter, and Clark finds himself spending more time alone with his thoughts. For years, Clark's greatest strength wasn't just his powers, it was the people who helped him carry them. Now that foundation is beginning to disappear, and that changes everything. Because Clark isn't just fighting stronger enemies this season, he's fighting them without the people who always helped him stand back up. But losing his foundation wasn't the hardest part. It was what those losses made him begin to question. For years, Clark believed his future was already written. Jor-El spoke of a greater destiny. Jonathan believed Clark would one day become the hero the world needed. Even Clark accepted that someday, everything would make sense. But Season 6 quietly asks a terrifying question. What if destiny isn't enough? Without Jonathan beside him, without the certainty he'd always relied on, Clark begins looking at his future differently. Not as something guaranteed, but as something he has to choose. That's why Oliver Queen's arrival is so important. Oliver isn't waiting to become a hero, he's already living that life. Every night he puts on the hood, he makes a choice Clark is still struggling to make: to act, lead, and to accept responsibility. More than once, Oliver challenges Clark with the same unspoken question: if you have the power to do more, why are you still waiting? And suddenly, Clark's biggest obstacle isn't Lex, the Phantom Zone, or even destiny. It's hesitation. For perhaps the first time, Clark begins wondering if the only thing standing between him and Superman is himself. As Clark questions his purpose, the future he always imagined begins slipping away. For years, Lana represented the life he hoped to build. Lex represented the friend he believed could always be redeemed. Season 6 tears both of those dreams apart. Lana grows closer to Lex, and Lex embraces the darkness Clark spent years trying to pull him away from. The hardest part isn't losing them. It's realizing he can't stop it. Clark has always believed people could choose a better path. That love could overcome secrets, and that friendship could survive mistakes. Season 6 forces him to confront something much harder. Sometimes people choose differently, no matter how much you love them, no matter how hard you try. For someone whose greatest strength has always been hope, that's devastating. And just when Clark thinks he may have found someone who truly understands him, he loses Raya. Raya isn't simply another ally. She's one of the first people Clark meets who understands what it means to be Kryptonian. She understands Jor-El and the burden Clark carries. She represents a connection to a part of himself he spent his entire life searching for, and almost as quickly as she arrives, she's gone. One more connection, lost. By the middle of Season 6, Clark isn't just grieving, he's isolated. Jonathan is gone, Martha is away, Lex has become an enemy, Lana is slipping further from his life, and Raya is gone. Even though Chloe remains his loyal friend, she starts spending more time with her own special someone, Jimmy. Even when Clark's instincts are right, he feels completely alone. In rage, Clark recognizes that something is terribly wrong with Oliver, long before anyone else does. Yet instead of being heard, he's challenged by Oliver, criticized by Lois, and pushed away by Lana. Ironically, the only person who truly understands what's happening is the one nobody believes. This becomes one of the season's quietest tragedies. Clark isn't alone because he chooses isolation. He's alone because one support system after another disappears. And when everyone around you stops understanding who you are, it's only natural to begin wondering if you've lost yourself too. By this point, the biggest battle isn't against Phantom Zone criminals. It's happening inside Clark. For years, his questions centered on his powers. Now they become much more personal. Am I making the right choices? Am I becoming the man Jonathan believed I could be? Am I ready for what's waiting for me? Season 6 never gives Clark easy answers. Instead, it forces him to find them himself, because that's the real lesson hidden beneath every loss. Most people remember Season 6 because Green Arrow arrived, because the Justice League began, and because Phantom Zone criminals escaped. Those moments are exciting, but they aren't what define the season. What defines Season 6 is watching Clark Kent lose every certainty he once believed would always be there. His father, friendships, his first love, his connection to Krypton, and even his confidence in the future, and yet he keeps moving forward. Not because he suddenly has all the answers, but because he finally understands that becoming Superman was never about certainty. It was about choosing hope, even when certainty is gone. Season 6 didn't teach Clark how to fly. It didn't give him a new power, and it didn't transform him overnight. What it did was far more important. It forced him to discover who he was when everything else had fallen away. Because before Clark Kent could become Superman, he first had to stop relying on everyone else's answers and start finding his own. So, what do you think? Was Season 6 the most important turning point in Clark's journey? Or do you think another season challenged him even more? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, subscribe for more deep dives into the characters, relationships, and moments that made Smallville unforgettable.